Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I am honored to have Peter Hernandez with me. Peter has a very fascinating story in real estate. His title today is President of Western Region at Douglas Elliman Real Estate. And so excited to have him on and highlight the pivotal moments that allowed him to get to where he's at today. So Peter, thanks for being on.
And Phil, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Absolutely. So growing up, Peter, real estate was not a foreign idea to you. That might have been something that was pretty important to your family as you were growing up. So talk a little bit about what you saw in real estate and what was intriguing to you about it from your younger days.
Well, nothing was intriguing at all about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
My brother and my dad were both in real estate, and they were encouraging me with all their might for me to get into it. And I sort of was not that interested. I was looking to be an attorney. I was, maybe an international banker. I mean, I had all these ideas in my head, and I was going to school at UCLA at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just not that interested. I can't even remember once, at the dinner table saying there's so many things I'd rather do than do real estate.
Yeah.
And here's a moment, I was in San Moritz, and I had just graduated from college, and I was getting ready to go to law school. And I had decided to see how long I could stay in Europe on $1,500. So I was working my way around Europe. I picked grapes on, farms in Cognac. I peeled potatoes in San Moritz. I was surfing, I was skiing, I was just bumming around Europe. And I was there about 9 months. And when I was in, believe it or not, San Moritz, I was down in the basement where they kept all the workers. And I was sitting there and I was thinking about my career. And I thought, why does every lawyer I know want to be in real estate? And if I'm already in real estate, why would I want to be a lawyer?
Yeah.
So you have those light bulb moments. And I thought, scrap the law thing. I'm going into real estate.
Yes.
And that's how it happened.
I love it. I love it. Now, I want to ask this as I was learning a little bit about your story. It seemed as though while you were at UCLA over on the weekends or things like that, you would work in real estate. And there was a conversation that you had with a lady, and she came to you and said, "Hey, I'm just looking to rent." And you ended up having a conversation that I'm not going to say convinced her, but she decided to do something else. So talk a little bit about that moment there.
God, you've really done your homework. So thank you for that. Just makes it easy. But it was actually my first weekend on the job. You can't believe it. I had just gotten my license. A buddy of mine named Mike Sarlo and we both got our licenses at about the same time. And I was sitting in the office. And back in the day, you had a little telephone book, which were the listings. You had a dial phone, and that was about all the equipment and technology that existed in real estate.
Yeah.
And this very attractive woman came in, and she had just gotten a divorce. She was from Brentwood. They were selling the house up there. And so she was coming down to Marina Del Rey, which at the time was where all singles went, back in the day. And so she was looking for rentals, and I took her around and showed her a whole bunch of rentals, and, we connected, and it was very, very nice time, but there was nothing she liked. And so my dad goes, take her name and number. He was trying to, oh, that's right, of course, and I grab her name and number. And then she said goodbye. We say goodbye, and she's heading out the door. And right before the door closed, I just had this idea, Phil.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I said, "Hey, Josephine, have you ever thought of buying?" She literally stopped in her tracks, turned around, looked inside the door and said, "Is there anything for sale?" And I said, "Of course, come on in, sit down." And we opened up that telephone book and we picked out a few. And on my first showing, I made a sale. So first weekend on the job, first client ever, first anything ever.
Yeah.
But I think what was really kind of wonderful about it was the idea that just, I had that thought in the moment to ask that question.
Yeah.
And boy, that was probably one of the reasons why later on in San Moritz, I thought, maybe this is my gig.
Yeah, I don't think many people have that same story of the first person they interact with ends up buying the home from them.
I had another incident like that, Phil. It's so weird. I was never a door knocker. I really didn't like it. It felt very encyclopedia selling to me. Now, I'm not saying that to discourage anybody that's a door knocker, because people are super successful at it. And I can give you a litany of agents that have built their careers off it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
And so I decided, well, I'm going to door knock anyways. Whoops. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So I decided I'm going to door knock anyways. So I decide to go out. I knock on my first door, and there's a woman working in the garden. I said, "Beautiful garden you have. I'm just a realtor. I'm Peter Hernandez from Hernandez Realty. I'm out just kind of checking the neighborhood." I said, have you or anybody you know ever thought of selling their home?" She looked up at me, and I swear to God, she looks at me, and then she stares backwards, and the door was open to the house. She goes, "Honey, there's a realtor out here. Remember we were talking about selling?" I mean, literally. And I actually ended up taking that listing. I never door knocked again. I thought I'd be one and done and just kind of end on 100% track record. But that was a funny, funny moment.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Once again, I don't think many people will share that same story with you.
No.
That's great.
But there were plenty of hard times too, Phil. Like when
Yes.
I eventually moved on from my dad's office, I joined a top independent company, John Douglas.
Yeah.
And I remember it took me like 6 months to make my first sale, and it was a struggle. And I was so down in the dumps. And then finally I make one, and it was like, $85,000. And it was like the lowest sale I think they'd ever seen. And I kind of, and I was pitched to the company as this great agent that was entering the firm and everything. And I couldn't sell my way out of a paper bag. And so you have those moments too. But you just don't give up. And that actually.
So let's highlight that. Not everyone that listens is in sales or things like that, but I think the idea of perseverance and persistency are things that transcend, a certain career. So talk a little bit about, you had success, in your role. You switch companies, so you already have, we'll say a name for yourself. So there's certain expectations, and talk about that 6-month time frame of, gosh, did I make the wrong choice? Am I doing the right thing? Tell me a little bit about that.
It was bigger than that because, I had gone to my father and asked him, if I could be his partner in the firm or, if I could buy it or something like that. And I was real excited and motivated and ambitious. And he was just at a place in his career where he wanted to wind it down. And unbeknownst to me, I think he was trying to push me out of the nest and trying to get me to go on in another direction.
Yeah.
But he never really said that exactly, because I think he was somewhat afraid maybe if I went out and didn't make it, you know what I mean? I mean, he was just a really loving dad. And so here I go, I leave, I walk like half a block and join a firm a half a block away. And I'm thinking the entire community hates me. I just left my father's business. You know what I mean? What a prodigal, jerky son or whatever. And I actually had quite the opposite experience, but it took a little bit of a while to do that. And when I finally just really settled in and started going, I had, clients and friends saying, "Peter, we love your dad, but we're so glad, you're with this, great brokerage." And they started listing and selling with me. But there was you're right. There was a really long period of time where I was just going, okay, when's something going to happen here? I was really nervous. Because here I am on my own, and I'm thinking, you think the whole world's watching, but nobody's watching because everybody's watching themselves. They don't care about you. I mean, we think everybody's paying attention to us, but nobody is.
Yep.
It's the funniest thing. But it's for anybody out there that's just in a dry spot, I think you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. You got to keep believing and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I love how you talk or gave a little bit of context to that in the transition. So that's great. Now, as you're with the John Douglas company, you start having a good practice, and inevitably what happens a lot is people that have good real estate practices are asked to mentor or to take some type of a leadership role. And not only do you do that, but then when there's a merger or an acquisition, you get a new title. So talk a little bit about that whole transition in your journey.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So I was about 15 years in sales, and I had risen to the top.
Yeah.
And I had a farm in my neighborhood, and I had 100% market share, which is pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
And somebody got a listing in. So now I'm like at 99% or something. And I completely panicked. And I thought, oh no, my life's over. I also thought, I wonder if I could be as successful as an individual selling real estate, maybe managing other people. And if I could create a huge income through other people.
Yeah.
So I went to the owner, John Douglas at the time, and I went to him and I went to his office. I'll never forget. And I said, "Hey, Jack," I said, "I'd really love to run the company for you." And he kind of chuckled and looked at me and he said, "Well, why don't we start you off with an office?" And so he gave me the Marina Del Rey office to manage. And I really loved it. I found that I probably got more enjoyment out of being the coach than the star player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd rather
Yeah.
be the Phil Jackson than the Kobe Bryant. And it
Yeah.
was really interesting. And I got into it, and we took that office, and it went up through the ranks. And then they moved me up to Santa Monica, and I ran those offices. And then when John Douglas sold to Coldwell Banker, um, I was one of two people asked to go straight from management to president of the company,
Yeah.
which was really crazy.
Yeah.
And that was scary. And it was also meant moving to a new, leaving Malibu and moving down to San Clemente. And it was just all these things were going on. And I'd never left my hood or my friends or my local coffee haunt or anything. And so it was scary for me for some reason. But I thought I can't pass up this opportunity, and I jumped on it.
Absolutely. So let's work through that. Starting with mentoring and managing people, right? What a tough task to motivate ourselves sometimes, let alone motivate a whole office of people.
Right.
So talk about, certain things that you did that you felt like, hey, this was part of my success, was being able to do this for the people inside of our organization.
Well, I tried a lot of different things. I tried a cookie cutter approach where, like, I'll never forget, I was in my office one day, and I ordered everybody to come in, and I asked them all to be standing up at their desks, and we were going to have cold calling night. And I had this one agent come in just crying, and she was a really, really good agent. She says, "I'm not a cold caller. I'm going to quit if I have to do this."
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off that I had to, actually coach agents on a very, very individual level.
Yeah.
And you had to work through their strengths, and you had to find what made them tick and why they were good and what was their X factor.
Yep.
Because the world doesn't need another realtor.
Right.
And so you have to know why you're in this business, what you're going to do, and what you're going to offer, so people will actually use your services. So it evolved into this thing where I started coaching agents for a half hour a day. And I had like an office of, I think at the time, about 120 agents.
Wow.
And so I was able to schedule my week by these like half hour back to back coaching meetings. And I was found that through that, I was actually able to manage the office too, because you're dealing with all their other situations during that time.
Yeah.
And I for some reason, it effectively not only helped them coach wise, but it helped them manage the office. So I did that. And I was able to determine that some agents, would do what you say, and they had tremendous success. Some agents argue with you. Some agents, there's got to be an easier way. Some agents, it was really, and it took me almost 40 years to figure out that, you just want to work with the people that want to do it.
Yeah.
And all the people that are looking for the easier, softer way, they're just always looking.
Right.
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
And so, I think, finding talent, we think of ourselves as, we acquire and manage talent. That's how I look at my profession today. Yeah. And I think real estate has gone from where real estate agents were real estate agents to now real estate agents are actually thriving startups and businesses. And
Yes.
I mean, we have agents earning 20, 30 million a year now, 2-3 million a month selling real estate. And, I think that puts agents on par with anybody in the world. And I think, with $1 million listing and some of the different things that are going on right now, we're seeing agents, have a different a perception in the marketplace. So it's been kind of a long journey, but I enjoyed it very much. And providing the services, coaching them, helping them build businesses and things like that. It was just really rewarding. It was really rewarding. And sometimes I'll like be out and about, and I'll hear from an agent that I haven't seen or talked to in a long time. And they'll go, "Peter, I remember something you said," or this or that. And it kind of puts a smile on your face.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes when you're in a role where you can have that direct impact, you pointed out earlier, there was something to be said about it being a rewarding career for me and my family, or, whatever I was able to create. But there's something about helping other people get that same, financial success, or have those same opportunities with their family where they can do some of those goals that they told you about when they started, and you help them, get to that level of success.
Yeah, it's more than satisfying. And I think this is for you team guys out there listening to this, that want to own teams and run teams. I tell us to all the team leaders, if you're not ready to mentor and give up some of your time to help people on your team, you're going to be a horrible team leader.
Yeah.
You really are. Because these people are coming to you, they're looking up to you, they're asking you to help them. They want to sit with you on a listing presentation. They want to do all these different things with you because of you. And if you're not available to them or willing to take the time with them or coach them or things like that, I mean, there's other ways to do more business. You could just hire more staff. You don't need to mentor agents. So to me, mentoring agents is something where you almost do it out of love and self-sacrifice, because you will make money with them, but it takes a lot of time from maybe away from you doing sales.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nope, that's a great mindset and great note. So as the transition to a new company happens, you become the president of that company, or one of two. Now talk about the learning curve in being, once again, kind of the new kid on the block, right? With a new company, but certainly not new to the industry.
Right. So when becoming president was really challenging. The first night, we were at the Blue Lantern on Laguna Beach, and we were going to have a strategy meeting in the morning. And part of the strategy meeting was we were acquiring a company, Dyson and Dyson at that time.
Yeah.
And so this was my first day on the job. I'm acquiring a company. I'm living in a new area. I'm walking downstairs. I call my wife at 3 a.m. and I go, honey, I think I'm going to ditch this thing and just come home. I was so nervous about the whole event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she, having a great wife, and she just said to me, why don't you just show up for the meeting and see what happens?
Yes.
And so that was day one. So, you're thrust into, all these experiences that you've never done before. But I think you can pull, from, surviving in Europe for 9 months. You can pull from managing agents. You can pull from managing offices. You can pull from sales experiences and interactions with clients and negotiations. So I think that when you enter into something you've never done before, that doesn't mean you can't use your past experience to guide you and kind of help you through that process.
Yeah. Now, I would love for you, and we'll get you some brownie points on the wife comment there, but talk about having the support of the people in your circle, right? I think for a lot of people, and you've probably seen
there was a agent that I had in my Santa Monica office who was trying and really struggling, but I knew in my heart she would be good.
Yeah.
And she ended up going on to managing offices. She had a huge career in sales, but her husband was saying all the time, you should quit.
Yeah.
Get out of this thing, get a job.
Right.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And finally, I wrote the guy a letter and I said, you're not helping.
Right.
I said, you need to support your wife 100%. And he actually thanked me for that, and she thanked me for it, and then he started supporting her and quit being a negative Nelly. I think if you've got negative Nellies in your camp, it's very difficult to stay positive and to keep going on. This real estate's a really, really tough business, and like I always say, every overnight success took 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Snapchat or a real estate agent dominating their own farm and marketplace. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And yet 10 years, I think in a time of a business is a very short period of time.
Right.
So, for agents, to be out there getting no all day long from all their clients and things like that, and then to come home and get no from your spouse or somebody, I mean, you're not going to make it. It's too hard.
Yeah, that's so spot on. And yeah, I mean, whether it's a spouse or it's a family member, right? I mean, whoever those closest people in your life are, without, a supportive backdrop, that makes the job that's already difficult even more difficult.
Yeah, 100%.
So as you're progressing with Coldwell Banker, Banker, you end up deciding that maybe I want to try and start something on my own. And so a few years after being president, Teles is started and founded. So talk a little bit about how that came to be.
So that was a really, really interesting experience. So it was about 5 years in, and I was really enjoying Coldwell Banker. That was an amazing company. They were super, super kind to me and supportive and everything. But I had this call from this friend of mine who's a big major coach.
Yeah.
And we worked together quite a bit on a lot of different things. And he said, hey, there's this guy in LA that wants to start a company, and he's kind of doing a little think tank, and he's asked you and me, and let's find the ex-president of John Douglas, and let's go down there and meet with him. And he's going to ask questions about how to build a luxury brokerage in Beverly Hills. So I said, sure, I'll go down and do that. And so we all went down there. We were at the Ritz-Carlton in Marina Del Rey. Hold on one sec.
Yeah.
So we're down in Marina Del Rey, and we're at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and we listen to this guy speak, and we're there for a couple of hours, and we listen to his proposal, we listen to his idea about his brokerage, and we walk out of the room and we go, what a dumb idea. And we were like literally walking down the hallway together, and one of us said to the other, well, what would we do if we put something together? And that was like a moment.
Yeah.
That was a huge moment. And, a lot of people in real estate think about, starting a company. Well, in any business, let's start a company. Let's do this. I've got this idea, whatever. But very, very few act on it. And for good reason.
Yep.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
And it costs money and it's risky and all that. But we decided to start meeting on this. So we were meeting at my house for over a year, and we put together a business plan for Teles Properties.
Yeah.
And we got together and we just kept talking about it. And we were going like, well, we know the brokerage world doesn't need another realtor, so why would we do this?
Yeah.
And we know that we're going to be competing against companies like Coldwell Banker and Sotheby's and all these other huge firms that are going to try to just, destroy us.
Yeah.
So how are we going to get out there into this marketplace and do this? What's our model? What's our vision? And it just began like that. And we just talked about it and figured it out. And then we just came out with a blast, and we just came out and acted bigger than we were.
Yeah.
And it was, man, what a ride. What a great experience.
So there's two things I want to highlight from what you said there. And one is the fact that you said yes to going to this lunch meeting. So I think it's an interesting dynamic of when you're first starting a business, you kind of need to say yes to everything because you just need exposure to people. But there
Correct.
almost becomes a pendulum swing where you don't have enough time to say yes to everything that comes into your, lane. You need to start saying no to things. So what was it about that interaction that made you say yes to it, knowing you already had a million and one things on the plate that day? You probably didn't need another thing.
It was interesting because I remember exactly where I was at the time, and it was about 8:30 at night. It was a long, long, long day, and I was in my office in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
And when I got that call, and I said yes, just because it was a friend, really, and I wanted to be supportive.
Yeah.
And do that. And it was, you made a really good point, like you can't say yes to everything. And I'm a yes person.
Yeah.
That's why I need a no person with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you're not a no person, you have to have a no person to run a good company.
Yes.
Because you can't say yes to everything, or you'll just spend yourself out of business.
That's good.
So I, the idea to go, here's something, pitch it. I mean, it wasn't like we were going to join this guy or anything. It was just more about showing up and doing it.
Yeah.
But when you're there was just something about the dynamic of the three of us walking down that hallway. What would we do if we opened a company?
Yeah.
I don't know what that was. It just was the way it was asked or something. It was just such an interesting question that it wasn't like what most people would say in that situation. Why don't we open a company?
Right.
That wasn't the question that was asked.
Yeah.
It was, what would we do if we opened one?
Yeah.
Isn't that more interesting?
It is. Yeah.
Why don't we? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Maybe we should. I don't know. But what would we do? And that just kind of fueled the conversation into a much higher intellectual level.
Yes, that's good. Now, the second thing that was interesting to me was you had mentioned that a couple of the partners inside of this business weren't necessarily real estate people. And so that gave you some outside perspective and maybe allowed you to do things differently than some of those big companies that had done it the same way it had always been done were doing it.
Correct. So the first two partners I had, and I don't think if you knew this, Phil, they both ended up being bought out of the company. So
okay.
It wasn't effective. And, I learned a lot of lessons around that about vetting partners, I learned about, there's just a lot of things you have to do before you partnership with somebody.
Yeah.
Because partners have to make it more about the enterprise than themselves.
Correct.
If they're seeing what they can get out of it, it destroys the company because it becomes about them and not the company. If you're all into the company, you're sacrificing, you're spending money, you're using up your time, it's all for the team.
Yep.
And so that was probably the biggest lesson I learned, was you really need to vet your partners to see if they're all in.
Yeah.
And these were not. So once they were gone, then it was interesting because my good buddy was an attorney, and then he was one of the investors in the company. And when he came in, I said, I'm really struggling with these partners. I got to figure out what to do. And it was at that point that he came in, and then he brought in another partner. It was first one was Peter Lowy, and he was the attorney for Fragment Del Rey Lowy. And so he was a big immigration lawyer. And then he brought in Sharon Srivatsa, somebody he knew that he invested with and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it was like putting together just a really great band. All of a sudden the music just started pouring out of us, and we brought out the best of each other. And the thing really took off. Then we had to bring in an operator. We brought in another guy, Evan Agloff, who is just a fantastic operator. And he came into the thing, and and it was magic. It really was. We had a lot of fun, and it was great company.
You bet. Now, with those different backgrounds coming in, what were a few of the, we'll just call them different ideas that you guys started operating with, or ways that you were doing business to be different than other firms?
Well, right out of the bat, don't forget, this was back in November of 2007.
Yeah.
So people weren't even using digital signatures yet. So
right.
We started off by saying, why let's ditch these PCs and let's get Apple computers. And so that was like, wow, that was like really a big deal for a real estate brokerage. And then we go, digital signatures were signed into law by Bill Clinton in the 80s. Let's add that to it, and then we had this huge success where we won a multiple offer where our client signed it while boarding his jet. You know what I mean? So that was a huge success.
Yeah.
So we were a technology kind of we were a young acting technology kind of, we looked outside of our industry for images and style of business outside of real estate. So we liked Apple, we liked Tiffany's, we liked Goldman Sachs. We pulled from Porsche. We just pulled from these different companies that had certain things about the way they ran their businesses that we wanted to incorporate. In fact, when we went to have our logo designed, we wouldn't, first of all, we wouldn't let them know who we were because we hadn't launched yet. And then secondly, that really frustrated the person. And then we said, we want to be new money. We want to be old money. We want to be techie like Apple. We want to be like Wall Street, like Goldman Sachs. And we gave them all these things, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it really well, pick something. I go, no, we just really want to try to hit all these things. And I think we did. And that was really fun. All of it was such a fun process.
Yes. Now, interesting timing of things, right? You said, hey, we're working in a high-end, market, but you also mentioned that this is in, November of 2007. And we know that not too long after that, we're heading into a tough real estate time. So talk about that, because to a degree, you're a little bit less affected in certain aspects, but at the same token, you're almost more affected because of the value changes in the properties that you guys are working in. So talk about managing.
Well, we purposely opened the office in 2007, knowing we were going into a recession. The best time to open a company is really when you're going into a recession, because you have startup money, and you're not like a company that's profits are dwindling, so they have to start slashing and cutting costs. You're still growing and adding costs. So it's a really stark contrast to the existing firms in the marketplace.
Yes.
The problem was we didn't know it was going to be the Great Recession.
Right.
We thought it would be a more typical recession.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting in the office one day and looking at the screen. We had a flat screen up there, and I'm looking at it, and I'm watching them banging on the doors of Shearson and Lehman trying to get their money out, and I'm watching banks closing, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are we going to sell another house? Yeah. And it felt like that. But what we did is we got right into a cadence of daily training. So we got into this pattern of every morning talking about what to say to clients, how to say to clients, how to maneuver in this market, what should people be doing, how do we find listings, how do we find buyers, and we just really became masters of our craft. It forced us to really get good, and then it forced us also to be super good stewards of our money and running a business. So we just shifted into the gear of, okay, this is what's going on. How do we act within this? How do we thrive and really get going? And boy, we just came out of it, so skilled. And to this day, we have podcast series. We do all these things to this day that actually started back then.
Yeah.
Where we do scripts and dialogues every morning. We role play. We talk about, what to say in a living room, how to show property, how do you deal with the client that's won't step up to the plate, or how do you
Yeah.
represent them well and make sure they get a good deal. So we talk about all these different things in different scenarios because we come up against them all the time. And like a good athlete or a good actor or a good anything, you've got to be ready to go on that spot. You don't want to have that look of deer in the headlights when they ask you the question.
Yeah.
So it really was a really I felt powerful. It just created a cadence in our style of business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's good. Now, for many people in their businesses, they want to be working in that highest echelon, right? The mega homes or the very large homes. How did you guys break into that, or what was kind of your plan of attack or strategy to really, capture that
Well,
market?
I mean, we did a pretty good job at Teles. I think we might have, got into the 20 million range, but I got to tell you that we were kind of like about a 8 million to 20 million company. We really never got into the 40, 50, 60 and up. Like at Elliman, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah,
there's no price limit. We have the highest price in the country at 250 million for a penthouse in Manhattan. We sell 40, 50, 60, 80, $100 million homes all day long. So I think that that was probably one of the reasons that, we ended up selling to Elliman, was because, everybody was like, wanting to merge with us or to partner with us. And we talked to a lot of different companies about that. But it wasn't until Elliman came along that we went, this is the real deal.
yeah,
We like this is a great business model. This is luxury. You know what I mean? And yet, it was described to me like a Mercedes Benz. They sell C-Class and they sell Maybachs. And I thought that was a really, really good example
yeah.
because, we have a lot of, entry level properties that we sell. It's about the client more than it is about the price of the property. And yet nothing
Correct.
screams luxury like Element. Nothing screams Madison Ave. Nothing screams Wall Street. Nothing screams Hollywood, like $1 Million Listing, like Douglas
Yeah.
Elliman does. And so for me, you know, it was just a really good idea. And I realized also, Phil, and I think you'll appreciate this, this is a billionaire's game now.
Yeah.
This is big time. I mean, real
Yeah.
estate brokerage is serious business. I mean, the amount of money that's traded is crazy.
It is.
I mean, you heard about the Malibu sale, I'm sure.
Yes. But tell everyone. Yeah, I would say yes.
$177 million, the second largest sale, in the
Yeah.
country. And I don't know where it stands in the world, but it's the second largest sale in the country. And that is a big number.
Yeah, I mean that big, one way to describe that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, the property taxes alone would crush us.
Oh, I love it. That's great. So you kind of hinted on it. So let's just segue to that. Things that tell us have gone well, and
Really
they've gone
great.
so well that people have decided, you know what, hey, we'd either like to partner with you or acquire you. And yeah, Douglas Elliman ends up being the practice or the firm that you decide to kind of conjoin with. So talk a
Sure.
little bit about that, how that process came to be. And
It was amazingly simple, Phil. I
yeah,
mean, we met with Howard Lorber and Stephen Kotler, and it was literally like, I'd say we describe it as within an hour, we had a handshake deal.
wow.
It took a year for the lawyers to try to figure out all the details.
Yeah.
But in concept, it was very, very simple. And it was because it was a culture of collaboration, training. It was a culture of luxury. It was just a, it's interesting. It was, we were really amazed at how a brand that's, started in 1911 could be so hip and so
Yeah.
youthful and so forward thinking. It was really
Yeah.
quite remarkable that it had remained so relevant. It didn't turn into, like I used to think of luxury brokerages as that brass door knocker,
Right.
which is like
Right.
not that luxury and kind of weird, but it really was amazing to me. And everybody there, I just immediately liked. And then, I had, friends there from back at the Coldwell Banker days, like Scott Durkin and, and things like that. So there was just a familiarity, and there was a comfort level, and it just seemed right. And it's been amazing.
Yes. So as that merger happens, you once again take over a strong leadership or a prominent leadership role, and that is president of the Western region. And so, what does that all entail for you now, and what do you spend your
Yeah.
time getting to do in that regard?
It's so funny you ask that, because, I think a lot about, like, what's my purpose in life?
Yeah.
Because I want to go hard for another 10, 15 years for sure. And I love working. I love being in this industry. Like I say, I love helping, agents and companies and things grow. And I've just got endless energy. So, for me, when they did it, I just promised, I said, hey, I'm going to help you guys grow this thing. We're going to make this huge. We're going to dominate California. And now we're in Texas, and now they were in Colorado, Aspen and Snowmass before, which we just are doing an amazing job out there. And I said, I'm just going to help you guys. I just want to help. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I do every day, is get up and just try to figure out, how do I help agents do more business? How do I help the company do more business? All the affiliates. We have an escrow company. I'm trying to figure out how that does better and more. And so that's what drives me, is just, just being a server, just being a worker among workers. Like people say to me sometimes, like, you're president. And I forget that, you know what I mean? I don't even think of the fact that I'm president. It doesn't even like dawn on me. I'm more about just getting up every day and just like trying to show up and do a good job.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So the kind of last question I'll have for you today, Peter, is this. Are there any moments as you look back on it that you say, that is the one that sticks out above all others, of, man, the things that I learned from that have led me to this, or this is, one of those pivotal moments that just taught me some foundational things that have ended up transpiring into all these other areas for me?
Well, there were so many great experiences and clients that have helped me along the way, Phil. Like as a young agent, there was like even Peter Lowy, my partner at Teles, he was such a good client and so encouraging. But I had a lot of people that took an interest in me, and I think really helped me in my career along the
Yeah.
way. I mean, I think back to so many people, gosh, it was just really, really amazing. I think it was a huge show of support and confidence, when Bob Becker, president of NRT, asked me to be president of Coldwell Banker. I mean, I was floored. I mean, I remember going, wow, this is like something, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that was really, really, really exciting. And then, I think, the confidence my friends and family did that invested in Teles Properties, they didn't even read the business plan. I don't know if you know that, but most people don't read the business plans. They invest in the people that are starting the company. And that's what they
Bingo.
really invest in. And, we spent a year working on that business plan. I don't think anybody read it except for one friend of mine who really knew it backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And so that was an amazing show of confidence and support. So I can't say there was one,
Yeah.
thing that really, my brother, and my dad, both huge supports, and have
Yeah.
always like carried me through those low moments where, like waiting to make that first sale at John Douglas, or the credit cards are maxed out and you don't know how you're going to make things work, or, you're going through partnership problems and you're wondering, wow, is this thing going to explode or implode? And, things like that. And, it's just, it's, you need an army of friends. You really
Yeah.
do. And, it's making me realize I probably don't appreciate them enough. And I probably haven't said thank you enough to all the people that have helped me in my life.
I love it. Well, on that note, we're going to encourage everyone to either write a letter, send a text message, or record a video and reach out to somebody or somebodies that have done something impactful for you to get to where you're at. And Peter, I want to say thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, from growing up and seeing real estate and then saying that is not for me, but having some early success, and then really, parlaying those stories and what you've learned to others and helping grow. There's no doubt that you're doing amazing things for other people, and hopefully that does provide fulfillment and satisfaction for all the things that you're doing.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being with me, sharing with me your time too, as well. It's been a lot of fun just kind of going down memory lane.
Absolutely. Thanks,
There's
Peter.
more to go. There's more memories to create.
Yes, sir. We'll do it again.
Okay.